welcome to my channel. Welcome to today's video. Today's video is going to be an eyeshadow palette first impression, and it's going to be on this Huda Beauty Pretty Grunge palette. I am so excited to be testing this out. I saw her sneak peek this, or it got sneak peeked, and instantly I was intrigued. The Empower palette wasn't a palette that I was really drawn to last year for holiday. The Pretty Grunge is. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing 3 looks. I'll also be talking about the details of this palette, inserting in some swatches, and then just giving my first impression thoughts on the formula and if it's the same Huda Beauty quality that we know and love. So if that sounds good to you, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't yet. I would love it if you stick around. And with that, let's get started talking about the details of this palette. All right, so first things first, I want to show you the inside of this palette. Here is the outside, and the inside looks like this. Now, I do think it's a little bit more warm neutral than people were thinking when this first leaked. People were expecting a very cool tone palette similar to the Natasha Denona Xenon palette. Now, for me, personally, I like this better. I like that it has some neutrals in it. The Xenon, which I haven't gotten yet, and that's a whole nother story, even though I ordered on launch day, is just, I think, gonna be too one-dimensional. This, I think, gives a little bit more variety, and really, I don't think it's that warm-toned. I think really just these 2 shades are the most warm tone in this palette, and if you remove these, it looks much more neutral, cool. So these are just, I don't know, they're throwing me off. I did already swatch this palette, so I'm going to throw up my swatch photo now. And some of these swatched cooler on my arm than they did looking at them in the pan. So that's something that I'm interested to see how they apply on the eyes. This does retail for $69, pretty on par with all of Huda Beauty's palettes, and you can find a discount somewhere. Right now, you're not going to get too much off, 10-15% if you sign up for her newsletter on her website. That's what I did, but for now, it's not going to go, I don't think, on sale for Black Friday, anything on like that. You'll have to wait a little bit longer to get a better discount on it, but it will eventually go on sale if you're not in a rush. Now, it does, just like all the other Huda Beauty palettes, kind of have just a different shade, not a powder finish, but in this palette specifically, it has a cream black. I think that was smart, like a black base. I don't have anything like that in my collection. I don't really have bases like the NYX Jumbo Eye Pencil in white. I don't have that, or a black one. So I'm actually happy that now I have something like that in my collection, and I think that it'll bring out more of the cool tones in some of these colors, in some of these mattes. Now, the only other thing I want to point out with this palette is that it is a little bit more matte heavy than shimmer heavy. For me and my preferences, I do prefer at least a 50-50 split or a shimmer heavy palette. I don't need that many mattes. I would have much preferred them to replace these 2 shades here with maybe some shimmers to just give it a little bit more variety. I haven't tried it on the eyes yet, of course, but just looking at the palette, it's very silver or dark heavy, and I wish that they had put some other shimmers in there, but this is what we're working with. And then lastly, I do just want to put it up against the Huda Beauty Rose Quartz. That was the last Huda Beauty palette that I picked up. I'm not a Huda Beauty stan by any means. I don't collect her palettes like I do with Natasha Denona. This was the last one that I picked up, and as you can see, you know, this was kind of the start, I think, of that cool tone palette craze, and even the Rose Quartz isn't as cool. It's really the mattes that make it cool, but these 2, I don't want to drop this, but these 2 here are still pretty warm leaning. I didn't pick up the Empowered palette. I've already mentioned that a few times because it was just too warm tone for me. This is much more my speed. I never picked up the Naughty Nude. That was also pretty warm toned. I did have the New Nude, which I decluttered. I didn't like the formula as much. Her formula wasn't the same as these palettes. And I had the Mercury Retrograde, but I never used it. And so I ended up decluttering it because it was just a little bit too colorful for me before I kind of entered my color era. So that's just the details on this palette. I'm excited to just see what kind of looks I can come up with. I'm gonna do 3 looks, I think, get a feel for the formula. Maybe just do different varieties, like more of an everyday, something a little bit out of the box for me, and then something, I don't know. We're gonna kind of wing it. So let's just zoom you in and get started. So for look number 1, I do think I want to just make it a little bit lighter, more everyday, so to speak, because I'm gonna have to take it off my eyes to do the second and third look. So that'll be the easiest to just remove. I'm thinking I wanna maybe play with these 3 shades. This was the one specifically that I noticed swatched a lot more cooler on my arm than what it looks like in the pan. And I might take this shade, which is Rebel, and apply it in the center. These shimmers have different textures. Like this one, for example, is much more flaky, whereas these are more of like a traditional shimmer. This one, and this one are kind of more of your traditional, just smooth, average, everyday shimmers, I guess I would say, like not indie quality, anything like that. This one and this one are definitely the standouts. Even this one's like not that special. It just looks cool in the pan. Let's just do this. I'm gonna start with Rise Up and put this kind of all over the lid here. Now I don't have any eye primer, anything like that. I, for a while, was using the NARS Soft Matte Concealer because I have it in my project pan. And I wasn't liking my looks with that. I think I'm just not used to a sticky eye base. So I'm trying out not using it to see if it's making a difference, because for some reason, those palettes, when I used that concealer, I didn't like as much. They didn't blend as well. And I have a feeling it was me and not the palettes. So this is kind of just gonna be my base shade to blend out the rest of these shadows. I want to see just like, does this palette have the versatility? That's why I want to do 3 looks, not just 1, because even though this is a first impression, can you get just different looks out of this? Can you just have this palette and get a variety of looks with it, or are you kind of just stuck with the same look? Now I'm going to go into Love Anarchy, which is the shade that I said looked the most different on my arm. It just swatched a lot cooler. And yeah, it has more of a purple base to it than it does in the pan. We're just gonna kind of bring it down, add a little bit of dimension. That I think is good enough. Then going in with Hope, which is even darker, placing that on the outer edge and further down in my crease, kind of like more my actual crease, not where I want my crease to be. And I don't want this too dark and smoky. I want to save that for maybe the next look. All of these mattes blended beautifully on my lid. I'm going to do the lower lash line before I go into the shimmer. I'm going to take the same mattes and just blend those out, starting with Love Anarchy, which was the medium shade. I'm going to run that kind of on the whole bottom part of my lash line. Taking a smaller brush into Hope to just do the outer corner and connect it, but I don't like a really smoky lower lash line. And then I'm going to take Rise Up, which was the first shade, on a more fluffier pencil brush and just blend all 3 of those kind of together and use that Rise Up shade to diffuse it. Now that I have all the mattes placed, I'm going to go in with Stand Up, which is really the only warm tone shimmer in the palette. And we're just going to use my finger. That's how I like to apply my shimmers. I don't have like long nails, so it's pretty easy for me. I'm going to put that over the whole lid, and I'm not going to apply a glitter glue because I just want to see if there's any fallout and if it's even necessary. Let's just see how these shadows perform with no help to them. Just going back into Hope really quickly, blending that out with the shimmer. And I still want to use multiple shades in this palette, even though I could just leave this look like this, add brown liner and mascara and be like good to go. This is perfect for me. But I do just want to see how it is. I just don't know what shimmer I want to pair with this. I think I'm just gonna tap it like in the center. I think I'm gonna go with Strong AF and use that one because it kind of has like a purpley tone. There's not really one that really goes with it too much. We'll just try it. Maybe, I don't think I can spotlight with this. It's too dark. I'll have to place it more on the outer corner. Change of plans. I'm gonna go back into Stand Up. I'm gonna have to blend these together. So Stand Up is just the lightest shimmer. I don't think, unless you're pairing it with like the very silver, but that's not how I would do it. That's better. So it made the look a little bit more sultry, if you will. Now, really quickly, before we start look number 2, I'm just gonna do look number 2 on this eye, and then we'll take both off and do look number 3 on both eyes for time's sake. I do wanna point out that there was some fallout. I didn't use glitter glue, which is why I wanted to see if there was fallout. There definitely is. So for the next look, I'm going to use a glitter glue, and I want to for sure use this black base, see what we can come up with for that. This is gonna be my more out of the box look. We have like nice, sultry, neutral every day. And this one's gonna be more night out, rocker, grunge style. If I can achieve that, let's find out. I've never used a black base before, especially in a cream. So this will be a testing out. I don't think I want it too opaque and too thick. I just want it to give like a background to the shades. So I'm gonna make sure to really blend that out. Taking just like a very stiff blending brush. It's kind of pokey, but I find that it blends out my creams the best. And just kind of diffuse that. I don't know if I need to do this, but it's gonna bother me if there's not some kind of like blend. Now that I have this black base laid down, part of me just wants to use this Rebel shade. That's the most flaky texture, and just put it all over the lid and call it a day. But then I'm not using that many shades in the palette, but that's the look I kind of want to go for. I think I'm gonna go for it. And I'm just gonna take my finger. I just said I was gonna use a NYX glitter glue, but we're changing on the fly. We need to go with it. Because it's a cream based, I'm hoping that it'll stick to the base. And I'm just gonna tap this all over the lid. The black is a little bit messy. I'm gonna go back in with maybe Heroin and blend it out. But first I just want to lay down this. Get it really all over. You don't see too much purple. This is really just like a shimmer. Maybe if I had like spread it, like smoothed it rather than tapped it, it would have been better, but it is pretty. This is like what my fantasy self wants to be, but my reality self is this side. You can be whoever you want to be. I totally get that, but what you actually do day to day does not often correlate. So this is what it's looking like. I love it. I'm gonna kind of just mimic the lower lash line a little bit. I'm gonna smoke it out. So I'm gonna use the cream, and then I'm gonna use Renegade, which is not like a matte black, but it is the closest thing. It's the darkest matte in the palette. So let me just kind of run this close to the lash line and then take Renegade, or maybe I'm gonna take Nirvana. I was gonna use this one, but I think I'm gonna take this one just so it's not too dark. And I'm gonna use that to blend it out. Maybe even a little bit of Fearless. Okay, that sounds good. I'm gonna stamp Nirvana just in the corner, and then going in with a fluffier brush, blending that out with Fearless. And like I mentioned, the black just isn't, it's a little messy, and it might be because my fingers are messy, but especially like in this corner here, I'm just gonna try and blend it out with that Heroin shade. And just kind of clean it up a little. You could also, if you didn't have a shade like this, just use like a translucent setting powder would also work, but this is close enough to my skin tone. I am absolutely in love with this look. I want to now do liner on both looks, kind of finish this up. So I think on this side, we'll use Renegade just to see how this performs. And then on this side, I think I'll just use Hope because that was the one that I used. So let me just apply the liner off camera because I'm also going to do mascara, show you the finished look, and we'll move on to look number 3. Liner and mascara is done. I am not sure which look I like more. Most of the time, I don't really love every look that I do with a palette. I have to really play with it more, but instantly I like both of these. So here is look number 1, and then look number 2. I didn't go too heavy with the mascara because I'm going to be taking this off in just a second here, but I think that this palette, I don't know, this palette looks really nice. It was so easy to use. I didn't use a lot of shades, and I got something completely like night and day, I feel like. This side could maybe use a false lash or something like that. I did get fallout. I mean, I just have glitter all over me everywhere. It's not too far down, so I'll be able to take it off before doing look number 3. But this is definitely a palette you're gonna wanna do before foundation or use a glitter glue. Maybe I'll try that for look number 3. We'll commit to that. So let me take this off and get started on the third and final look. Now for the third look, I think I want to go more purple mauve-y. So kind of this quad here, I definitely want to use this shimmer. I'm gonna pull out my glitter glue before I forget to use it. So we'll test that out. I think I got the majority of the glitter off my face. So let's just get started. I'm gonna go in with the lightest shade, Beauty Chaos. And just again, kind of put this all over the lid and blow it out. Still have concealer only on my lids just to kind of cancel out any of the leftover color that might have stayed on. But I think I didn't let it dry all the way, so it's kind of sticking to it a little bit, and because it was a little bit wet tacky, it's making this shade a little bit darker, but it's light enough where it's totally fine. Take this pretty high up. Now just going in with a smaller brush and going in with Brave. Apply that lower, just kind of like we did with look number 1. Basically the same technique, just different colors. Don't want to apply too much of that because then I'm going to go even smaller into Fearless and apply that even lower and more on this corner. No additional product on this brush, just kind of going in, blending it out. just like that. I do have like a little patch there, but I think it's from the concealer. Yeah, that kind of just blended out. Okay, that's better. So now let's apply my NYX glitter glue, and then we'll go in with Haphazard all over the lid. See how that turns out. Let's see if there's less fallout with a glitter glue or if you just have to use this palette before foundation. Haphazard looks like this once it's swirled together. So I'm just gonna go in and tap it all over the lid. Even this color would have looked really pretty over that black base because it has like a black to purple flip to it. It's darker than I was anticipating. I didn't remember my swatch that well. I did my swatches yesterday when I first got this palette, but it's still very, very pretty. I don't know if I want to, I guess we'll go into Maverick since I haven't used that shade and just apply that kind of on the inner part and bring some lightness to that shade. I'm just gonna try to really sheer it out and blend it into that Haphazard shade. Now for the lower lash line, I think I'm gonna take Maverick and apply it to the inner third of my lower lash line. I don't normally add a shimmer, but first I'm gonna add Brave and put that all over the bottom lash line. It's light enough where I can kind of just smoke it out. And taking a super tiny shader brush, I'm gonna be very careful. Tap off my brush and apply it to the inner third. I think it could use it. My brush might be too small because I didn't use anything in the inner corner, so I still want to bring some lightness, but maybe not really showing up that much. I wonder, let me try a different brush. I'm going to use this more really small kind of pencil brush instead of that flat shader, but this just might be too textured because it doesn't turn very smooth. I think that was a mistake. It just isn't doing what I want it to do. Just expecting it to be a little bit more opaque, like on the front part of my lid, but because I didn't use my finger, it's a lot more sparse. I'm gonna kind of just, I'm gonna leave it. I'm not gonna wipe it off, but I am gonna go back in with the Brave and just try to kind of almost go over it. And then go into Fearless, the darkest matte. Make sure I just kind of connect it. Lastly, I'm gonna take Nirvana and just kind of line, but really, really slightly. I just want to thicken up my lash line. So I'm just gonna kind of smudge this as close as I can. Just like that. Okay, I like this other than just the lower lash line mishap, but that was me, nothing to do with the shadows because it applied just fine on top. Much less fallout using the NYX glitter glue. So it does work like that. I do recommend doing that, or if you don't like using the NYX glitter glue, if you don't have it, then just do your eye makeup first. But now I'm gonna finish up the other eye, add some mascara, and come back and we'll talk about my first impression thoughts on this palette. Look number 3 is complete. Here it is. I do like it. I don't know if it's my favorite of the 3. It's not my favorite of the 3, but I do still like it nonetheless. So now that I've done all 3 looks, I'm going to just gather up my thoughts here and kind of just give you a summary on my first impressions. So first impression thoughts. I'm very happy with my purchase. I don't think that's any surprise. I loved all 3 looks that I did. There were some I liked more, but I think that this palette's really versatile. This is not, it's called Pretty Grunge, and I find that to be true. Like, you can get pretty looks out of this and you can get grungy looks out of this. I'm hesitant to say, because this is a first impression, that this is my favorite Huda palette to date, but it just might be, because right now my favorite was the Rose Quartz, and this one I can just see more looks with rather than the Rose Quartz. This is really just a little bit more one-dimensional. You're only gonna get like a pinky purple look with some shimmers, whereas this, there's just so much more variety. I like the black base in here because I don't have that, so for me that works perfect. The only negatives I have is that there is a little bit of fallout, which is not a big deal. Just do your eye makeup before. I still, even with a glitter glue, would recommend doing your eyeshadow before your foundation. And the second thing is, I just wish there were a little bit more variety in the shimmers, or they took these 2 shades out and added 2 different shimmers. They're just a little bit too silver and purple based. I tried a lot of shades in this palette, but I for sure did not try this avant-garde shade, and I don't think I used this one. But other than that, I think I used all of these. I think that I used all the shades. So that's not actually that bad. I mean, Renegade I only used as liner, so I don't know if that counts. But the formula is really great. I just wish you had more of an inner corner shade. I didn't do an inner corner for this palette. If I was using this, like actually not just doing a video, I probably would have to just go in with my highlight and use that as an inner corner. I do like a shimmery inner corner, but I guess if you wanted to, you could go in with this matte. I'm not really a matte inner corner person. So again, that's just a personal preference. I don't really count that as a con against this. But after that, I'm very happy with this. I liked how look number 1 was just very light and everyday. It wasn't too grungy, but then look number 2 really just like bumped it up a notch. This one is still pretty dark and smoky, but I think I could tweak it a little bit more to kind of make it more of that middle ground. It's just overall a great versatile palette, and I wish that this had launched before the Xenon, because I'm just considering returning that palette. I haven't gotten it yet, and part of the reason is because it did take so long to ship. I ordered it with the early access link, and it's still on its way to me. So I don't know. I just feel like that palette's I'm not gonna love it. I'm trying not to judge it too harshly because I do want to do a video and a review on it. I'm going off on a tangent, but I'm nervous about that palette and if it was worth the price tag. This one, I have no questions about it. This was worth the money, and I'm going to get use out of this palette. I will be ranking this palette along with other palettes. I am so much in palette overload. I hope you're excited for some eyeshadow videos, because that's probably what I have coming for a little while now. But I already filmed my palette ranking with my last batch of palettes, and that should be going up shortly. But I now have the Glaminatrix Rich Romantics, I have the Cosmic Brushes Gothic palette. I loved that palette as well. I'll link both of those videos down in the description box, as well as all the makeup that I'm wearing on my face today. And I'm looking at a big pile of eyeshadow palettes that I still have to do videos on. So right now, this is like top of the running with the Gothic palette. That's where I'm feeling, but I need to try it out more. I have no problem with that. Like, I can tell on if I like a palette or not by how excited I am to continue testing it out. And I'm excited to continue testing this out. I really just want to stress on my preference that this is so versatile. Going back to those other palettes that I talked about, the Gothic palette is definitely like, it's a purple palette. You're getting a purple look out of that palette, and that's not a bad thing. If you want a purple look, you're going to reach for that palette for a specific reason, a specific occasion. This palette though, because I can get so many more looks out of it, that's why it's really just standing out to me. And that sounds like, you know, a groundbreaking thought, like, oh, a palette where you can get multiple looks and not just one. But I haven't tried a palette like this in quite some time, and I'm very impressed. I'm very happy with this. We'll see how it goes up against Rose Quartz. I might just put them like neck and neck, or reacquaint myself with Rose Quartz and see if I just like this palette more. Anyways, happy I picked this up. No regrets. You'll have to let me know down below in the comments if you plan on picking this up, if this is just totally not your vibe, you knew this was a pass right when you saw it, or if it's on your wish list, or if you already picked it up and your thoughts on it. But that's where I'm going to leave you all today. I hope you're having a great one. I hope you enjoyed my looks, swatches with this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.